Hey PC gamers, and welcome back to the PC Gamer Chat Log. I am Lauren Morton.
And hey everyone, I'm Mollie Taylor.
And this week, Mollie and I are bringing on our hardware managing editor, Jacob Ridley, to talk about how expensive it is to actually get into PC gaming. We've had news recently about that new PS5. People have been talking about the Steam Deck, and it's an important time of year. Like, the sales are coming, right? People are thinking about purchases. So how expensive is it actually to get into PC gaming? Like, there are different avenues. Do you need a whole PC? Or are you just going to go Steam Deck? Are there other routes? And what is that actually going to cost you if you're starting from the ground? And how can you maybe save some money on your hardware, on your software, everything? But before we get to that, Mollie, what did you play last week?
Yeah, so the demo for Metaphor ReFantasio, I think. I've been calling it Metaphor ReFantasio, but I think it's Metaphor ReFantasio.
Either way, absolute soup name. They should have just called it Metaphor. Metaphor.
Genuinely, like
Persona,
terrible
Persona,
Metaphor. Shin Megami Tensei. That's fine. It's the like high fantasy game from Atlas that's like, it's mostly Persona, but it's got like a little bit of SMT in there. It's got the press turn system from SMT, but like functionally the way that the game operates is very Persona-y, which I love. I freaking loved it. It is so good. Like,
I'm gonna finally play a Persona game that's not a Persona game.
Oh my god, you should. It is fantastic. Like, it is going to take over my life, I fear, for the foreseeable future. Very, very excited for the full release. I don't know
how much is in the demo.
There's about 4 to 6 hours. There is it's like a handful of dungeons. So it's the first dungeon, and there's like a side dungeon as well. So there's a decent amount of stuff in there, and then that all carries over to the full game as well. But
right. Yeah. That's not always a given. That's great.
Yeah, it's very, very handy. And like, the thing that I really like about Metaphor is, you know, in Persona, it's like, you're the only one, like, as the protagonist, you're the only one that can kind of freely switch between like personas, so, you know, to hit different like weaknesses and stuff. But it's all like archetypes in this game, so it's all like classes, and you can assign all the classes to like different people. You can like double up on classes. You can have like, you can run like with three mages if you want, you know. You could like run with like 3 brawlers or 3 warriors. Like, it's very like experimental, like all the different little ways that you can like set up your team composition and stuff. It's so
You're
neat.
saying all the right fantasy girly RPG words for me. So
yes, it's so good. I have not felt this way about a JRPG for like a very long time. Like, I feel like I have the reputation for being the JRPG person, me and Wes Fenlon, but I have not really been able to like enjoy a JRPG in my adult life for a very long time. They're very time consuming, right? But
for starters,
there's one of the biggest things. It's that initial time investment, right? But I think Metaphor is like gonna be the one that brings me back to my beloved genre. It is, I'm so excited. I'm so excited to be very, very normal about it with everyone else. Very excited.
Don't be normal for even a second. Don't do it.
Never be normal.
I'm still playing what I was playing last week, which is more Shadows of Doubt, because like I mentioned last week, it wasn't in 1.0 yet. I just like got the itch to play it again. The like procedural noir cyberpunk-ish city mystery generator, basically. And it hit 1.0 at the end of last week. So now I finally got back into that version of it, played a lot over the weekend. Still really enjoying it, have a lot of the same feelings. It like, because it has procedural writing in it, it gets kind of samey kind of fast. Like, oh, I've seen this email before. I've seen this like dialogue before. And so that's not like the reason to go to it. It doesn't have this like, you know, intensely authored cool narrative thing. It's a sandbox, and it's It's not like Phasmophobia at all, because it's not the same kind of game. But you know that little brain tickle that Phasmophobia does where you can just like, I can just go do one of these. I can just like go do one. And you log in and you're like, yeah, give me another little puzzle box in with the bits that I recognize, and I'll just like solve the little thing. And that's what Shadows of Doubt does for me, for sure, is, you know, I sign back in. I've got like a short-term like save file going right now. And I'm like, I just solved this like multiple murder going on in the city. And now somebody's been kidnapped and I hadn't seen a kidnapping case yet. So I was like, okay, I gotta go. Gotta find the ransom note, figure out whose fingerprints are on it, look at their handwriting, start finding out like who she thought she was being stalked by, and then like go like break into that person's apartment, check their fingerprints. Ah, yes, it's her. And then go save the kidnapping victim. And, you know, all the while, like, putting everything on your cork board, connecting it with your red string and everything. It's very satisfying to just kind of like
very fun.
Know the little pieces and how they work, and develop your own little tricks. I think I read Josh's review. Our Josh Wallens did the review for the 1.0 version and mentioned like, him just like kind of organically realizing, if I need to know who in this apartment place it is, and I'm looking for a particular fingerprint, I should go to the mailboxes and look at the fingerprints on all of the mailboxes. And when I find the matching one, that's where they live. That's the person. And it has just, I think at some point you run out of those, right? You run, like you figure out all the meta tricks and the things to do, but they're very satisfying in your brain to be like, yes, of course. Here's how to do this more efficiently. I figured it out. I've done it. I got it. Yeah. So it's a lot of fun. I've been enjoying just the puzzly, sandboxy nature of that. And that's basically all I did. I played that like all weekend. So I got a lot.
Hell yeah.
And I think that's it. Cool. Let's go get Jacob and talk about becoming a PC gamer and the cost thereof. Hey, Jacob, thank you for coming to talk with us about the real cost of PC gaming. As one of our hardware knowers, we needed a little bit of your knowledge in here about.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, deals and prices. It's
hopefully I have something to offer though in terms of the hardware knowledge. So
you're smarter than us.
You don't feel like you've been cheaped out on.
No, absolutely not. We kind of started talking about this because of the PS5 Pro, right? That announcement happened, and the sticker shock got everybody. It was like $700. Oh my god, for a new console. I mean, it's been a minute, I feel like, since a new console has cost $700. That's quite the new watermark.
I guess it's like, I think we've covered it quite a few times on PC Gamer, but there's a certain degree of, it's very expensive for a console, but is it actually that expensive when you look at PCs or even comparative PCs? Because in console land, it's a lot of money. $499, I think, was like the most expensive PS5, the disc edition. And this is adding quite a lot of change onto that, but it also doesn't have a disc drive on it. So really, it's like $300 more than the actual discless PS5. But then, if you look at it in terms of PC terms, like, is it actually a terrible deal?
Right, which is something that you brought up. I think Jeremy wrote about this for us, like a comparison of the PS5 Pro to like a gaming PC and what you're getting out of that. What was like the takeaway for the most part? Like, it's an expensive console, but it's still, it's still a console that's cheaper than a PC.
Yeah, I think Jeremy's take was kind of most, and I'm going to completely murder his take here, but his take was, I think, kind of came down to the fact of just like, these consoles are just getting more and more PC-like by the day, and therefore, you could just get a PC. I think Fraser wrote one for us, which was kind of like, this still costs like half as much as my graphics card, though he can make that point because he spent an incredible amount of money on his graphics card because he has a 4090.
Fraser is a childless man who was actually good with his money for the most part.
Until he bought the 4090. But no, 4090 is a really good deal,
everything.
Actually. No, so I think with the PS5 Pro, it's obviously shocked a lot of people, like you say, the sticker shock of it. But I think for PC gamers, I'm going to always fall on the side of still you should probably buy a PC. But when you compare it to what you could actually buy in terms of a pre-built gaming PC, so let's pretend you're not building it yourself and saving some cash there, but a pre-built gaming PC, I mean, I don't think you're going to get anything near comparative specs in terms of the GPU, which is got 60 CUs in the PS5 Pro, based on the percentage that Sony's given, of a kind of AMD RDNA 2 or 3 architecture. If you wanted that in a graphics card, you're looking at an RX 7800 XT, which is like pretty much $500, maybe a bit cheaper if you're actually shopping around. Maybe come Black Friday, it'll be cheaper than that. But I mean, you're talking about more than a diskless PS5 just for the graphics card alone. And then you're getting an 8-core CPU. I think it's a Zen 2 CPU in the PS5, probably, same thing again, probably for the PS5 Pro. That's going to cost you another couple of $100, if not more, plus the motherboard, plus the RAM, plus a 2 terabyte SSD to match. I mean, we're already getting like way more expensive. And that's not to say I would buy the PS5 Pro or recommend anyone do it, because I don't necessarily agree with the kind of, I think if you want, I mean, we'll probably get into this, but if you want an experience where you're just kind of pushing the boundaries of what you can do with 4K and frame rates, I do think the PC is a lot better for that. But yeah, I do think that actually looking at the easiest comparison you can make between a PS5 Pro and a PC, it's not actually that favorable towards the PC.
Yeah, just like price for money. And I think what we always wind up ignoring in these discussions, because like a new console will get announced, the price will come out, people will immediately start comparing it to a different console or to like what it would take to just buy those components and put them in a machine. And it kind of ignores the context of like lifestyle, right? Because consoles have always been like a lifestyle prospect. It's about having a machine underneath your television that plays the video games, and then you don't have to touch or upgrade. And all of, the software updates just come through online or, nowadays, versus a PC that you're looking at, fitting into all sorts of parts of your life. You might be working or doing school on it. You might be, getting big components to handle things like video editing or rendering or who knows what, in addition to gaming. So it has like those hidden other uses that don't make it less expensive, but make it,
it's the convenience, I think, right? I think when people do this, have been kind of making this argument of, oh, why would you pay that much money for a PS5 Pro? Just get a PC. And it's like, okay, but pretty much everyone has a TV. I don't know anyone in my life who doesn't have at least one TV. But does everyone have a monitor? Does everyone have like a desk? Does everyone have the real estate to be putting a desk in their like bedroom or their apartment? Like, I can, even when I was a kid, I could just put a console in my bedroom and sit on my bed. Like, I didn't need any kind of specialist equipment. Whereas with a PC, I think it's the real estate side of it as well that I think people don't always necessarily like consider.
It's tricky, isn't it? Because I don't imagine Sony expect to sell that many PS5 Pros. I mean, the limited edition 30th anniversary one just sold out in a flash, and that one cost even more money. It was amazing though. I absolutely loved it.
It was really cool.
Yeah, I just think it's not this personally, that kind of tiered console approach, which like Xbox did with the Xbox Series X and the Series S, having a cheaper one where the specs weren't quite so good and therefore some games didn't run so well, and then developers have to develop for 2 different platforms, and while they're already developing probably for a lot of other stuff, I do wonder if it kind of eats away. And I think this was kind of a point that, again, I'm cannibalizing what Jeremy's saying, but it kind of eats away at what consoles do best, which is that simplicity, is that convenience. I mean, you want to, the Switch is amazing because it's the same. I mean, you can get a Switch Lite, but it's still ultimately the same. And it's been the same for 10 years, and it's going to be the same until it dies, and it'll still be really good. It'll still be really cheap. And I just wonder if, and this is my PC gamer opinion, not me writing for a console site and really living in this world that often. But I do wonder if it kind of cuts away at what consoles do well and actually just kind of, as Jeremy pointed out in this thing, just kind of appeals to what PC does great already, which is just modular, flexible. You can expand as much as you want. You can shrink it down as much as you want. And I do agree with you on the space thing. It is more convenient, but the $399 PS5 is the most convenient option out of those. Yeah. And you're not going to buy, if you're just looking for convenience, you don't have the space. Maybe you do want to buy the latest new thing, but will you not just wait until the PS6?
That is true. Console's been out for 4 years already now? Like, you could wait another 2, 3, right?
Or
The other
sooner, it
thing-
depends. Sorry, go on.
No. The other thing that people were comparing it to, and I think we felt like this argument held less weight, was the Steam Deck. I think just because they're similar prices, right? That so we go from trying to compare component to component to comparing like a direct price, because you can get a Steam Deck for about that $700 mark, like a PS5 Pro, and I don't know if we feel like that's a comparison that matters really.
I wrote quite a lengthy, you could call it a rant on this, about it. Just, I saw a lot of people on Twitter. I didn't really believe that was a comparison anyone would make. And then I went on Twitter, X, sorry now, and
who are you people?
A lot more people than I was expecting were making that comparison, or telling people, don't buy a PS5 Pro, buy a Steam Deck. They're not the same audience. Those are not the same people. That's not even the same. They're not even comparative. And also, they're not even that similar on price. I mean, if you want to get the top tier 1 terabyte OLED Steam Deck, I think it's like $649 maybe. That one's close. But I mean, realistically, you can get a lot cheaper Steam Decks than that as well. I mean, like half the price. So I think they appeal to completely different audiences. If you want a handheld that has all the benefits of kind of a gaming PC and that's access to all your library, I mean, a handheld's a great way to get into PC gaming too. I'd definitely push for that. But are you really going to sway people who are potentially going to buy a mid-generation, extremely expensive version of the console they already own with a really weak version of a gaming PC that you can fit in your pocket? They're just false equivalents. I just don't believe they match up.
Yeah, it's not going to happen. I had made the joke when the price had initially been revealed. I was like, oh, just buy a Steam Deck. And then I was like, but actually, like, don't. Because you're not going to buy a Steam Deck and, quite frankly, be able to play, like, the newest games at the same, like, level that you would be able to do on a console. Like, it's just not happening, boo-boo. Like, the resolution's not there. You have to, like, lower the graphics a lot of the time. And I think you're right. It's like a false equivalence at the end of the day. Like, the Steam Deck is really, really good at what it does. It is not a replacement, because I own like the normal PS5. Like, the Steam Deck is not a replacement for my PS5 in like any way, shape, or form. It's more so like an accessory to my PC than it is straight up like console.
And that wasn't me calling you out on your own podcast, by the way, for saying it was like a Steam Deck.
Oh no, you totally
was.
You totally
No, it wasn't. No, because that was in good humor, But no, there were quite a lot of people that said that online. It is quite surprising.
Yeah, unironically saying it online with no critical thinking.
Yeah, and I would never say that you were doing that in our channels for work either. But I think the point you're making about their different experiences. They're completely different, but also, the PS5 Pro is promising kind of 4K 60. This is what you're going to get. It is an improvement on the PS5 where you have to pick which one you want, kind of quality, performance, frame rate versus resolution. And if you want a 4K 60 PC that's comfortable with that, it's a lot more money than even, the kind of 15, maybe $1,500, maybe a bit less if you get a good deal, maybe $1,200 you could get something that'll just about do 4K. But if you want something that's confidently 4K, I mean, you're easily looking at kind of the $2,000 mark. You want like a higher end GPU, you want something with lots of VRAM. And I just think you're not really going to convince many people with actually just get a Steam Deck instead, if that's what they're after.
Yeah. So since we're talking about price stuff, Jacob, what did you feel like the price for a comparable PC to a PS5 is going to be? If you were starting from scratch, if you were getting either a pre-built and just looking at something comparable?
I think from when we looked at the time of the announcement, it was about $1,150 for the same GPU with, I think it was an AMD Ryzen chip, which would have been an 8-core processor as well. Probably, I think it was a newer chip than what came in the PS5 Pro. You're not going to buy a Zen 2 chip now. But, that's probably about the same ballpark. But I think you're going to be looking at spending more than that if you really want to go, actually, I want 4K 60. I want that same experience. And that's not to say that PS5 does something magically better with its silicon. It is using it well. The developers have developed for it. It is specifically getting a lot of attention, but so does PC as well. I just mean that there's the PS5, they're kind of selective. They can say, hey, this game's going to get the most out of the PS5 Pro and it's going to run at 4K 60. But if you want that on every game, you're going to have to spend more money on a comparable PC.
And that's just on the PC. That's just on the tower, which is how we wound up talking about this. Like, what is the true cost of getting into PC gaming? Because yeah, sure, you can spend maybe $1,100 or closer to $1,500 to get like a machine that does something comparable. You haven't bought your monitor yet. You haven't bought a keyboard or like, you know, a gamepad that you're going to want to play like certain games with. There's a lot more that goes into PC gaming, and like, you can wind up realizing like you've blown your budget faster than you think when you start getting into this. So I guess as I want to have an eye for like the sales time of year coming up, like Black Friday is coming, Cyber Monday, you know, Boxing Day sales, all that stuff is going to start happening here in the last like quarter of the year. And talk about, I guess, like some of those hidden costs, like the other things that go with PC gaming. I don't know. Do you guys want to start talking about hardware or talk about like the software side of stuff, like all the peripherals or games?
I think on the sales front, I mean, you know, as you say, we're coming up to that kind of like sales period, which is a nightmare really for me. But there's a lot on. You have to cover a lot of stuff. But there will be a lot of discounts that actually are quite worthwhile, I think. I mean, I'm going to be guessing there's a new GPU generations coming out soon. That means they might be wanting to get rid of graphics cards that have been kind of sat around for a while. I mean, I can only hope. NVIDIA graphics cards hold on to their value, and they have for a very long time. They're starting to come down in the UK a little bit. We're seeing some rare sales on those. But, you know, in the US, they've trickled down as well. And I think, well, SSDs, that's something that they plummeted in price. Now they've gone back up a bit and they're kind of staying there. I still think you can get monitors and CPUs. There's a lot of stuff that's always massively discounted. And if you're going to build an entire new PC from scratch, probably is the best time to do it, especially towards the end of the year. If you've got the time and, you know, money and resources and you're happy to kind of go for it. And if you're happy to build it yourself, I think that's definitely the way to go if you want the maximum savings.
Yeah, definitely. All right, I want to talk peripherals then. Things that go with your PC that you don't think about up front. How much are we spending on this stuff? Mollie, do you want to share something that you spent on recently? What are you feeling?
I'm just thinking about how much money I've spent in the 4 years since I started this job. Like how much fucking money. I'm looking and I'm like, okay, I have like 2 mice. I have 2 keyboards because I have a TKL and a full keyboard. I have my webcam. I have my microphone. You know, I have my controller because, I mean, I had that one anyway. But, you know, it's like, I have a
What was the last thing you got for your PC?
That's a good question. Actually, for my PC, non-peripheral-wise, I think the last thing I got... Does my microphone arm count? I don't know.
Yeah, I'd say
it's an accessory. It's a peripheral accessory.
But that's a perfect hidden cost, isn't it? You wouldn't think. Yeah. Well, I got a microphone.
You get the microphone, but you need the stand for it or the arm for it. Yeah.
Yeah. So that is probably the last thing that I bought. Before that, probably my MMO mouse, which is it's a little more specialized, right? Like I already had a mouse. I could have just gone with a mouse forever, but that was like £80.
Yeah, sort of a snob mouse, but yeah.
It is a bit of a snob mouse.
On my second mouse, yeah.
It's a very useful snob mouse, I must say. But yeah, and it's like one
more Jacob and you'll KO her.
Obviously, you know, we're quite fortunate. Sometimes we end up with an abundance of items in the office that we could kind of use sometimes. Like my microphone broke. And very luckily, we had a spare one lying around. But before, like that microphone that broke on me was like £120. Like, it's obviously you don't have to go all out, right? You can buy like a £20 microphone and like a £15 keyboard. Like,
this is the thing I always say with PC gaming, though, and it's the same with building a PC or building your desk and peripherals and everything around it. There's always one better. You know, you could always go one better. Yes. You could say to someone, all right, I'm going to get this GPU in my build. And they go, yeah, but, you know, if you spent just this much more, you get this one, and this one has this, and this, and RAM, and, you know, it's this, that, and the other. You could do it with peripherals. Well, you know, I'm going to get this keyboard. Oh, yeah, but you could get this Hall effect one or this analog one that's better for esports stuff, or this mouse that's got a higher polling rate. And it only costs this much more. And if you tot up everything you're kind of spending extra, I think you could spend like an entire gaming PC's worth of money again just buying that slightly better thing.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. I was just starting to add up like the absolute basics. Like Jacob, you said 1500 PC for like your tower, maybe, right? You'd spend like 300 on a monitor if you just want like a nice middle of the road monitor.
Most people have to.
I know we're going absolutely basic, Mollie. 300 for a monitor.
One monitor. Ugh.
Yeah, just one. Hey, look, we're getting in from scratch to PC gaming. Okay.
Not everyone has 2 mice, 2 keyboards, and 2 monitors.
Yeah. I need to have everything. Okay.
Like let's see, 60 on that Xbox wireless gamepad that you're gonna need if you are a heathen like me and you play a lot of games with a gamepad, and then like let's say you get a keyboard mouse combo for 70. That's like basic enough stuff. Get it on a deal during one of those big sale weeks. $1930. Yeah. You're pushing 2,000 just on the absolute basics with
but you need a
good
desk
PC
to put it all on.
Oh right, you need a desk. Look, let's pretend you own a desk.
Like
let's
50
pretend
bucks
you own
on
a
a
flat
desk.
surface. You know?
Okay.
Yeah.
What
Any
about
flat
a chair?
surface.
Do you own a chair?
Let's pretend they have a chair and a
do
desk.
Do you own a chair that's not going to hurt you? I did. There was a period of my life where I had, when I still owned my 360 and I was living somewhere for only 3 months and I had, like totes that you move in, the big plastic ones. Had taken everything out of it, flipped it upside down. The gaming console was on the tote, so it could be attached to the TV that was hung on the wall.
Oh,
that's how I lived for about 3 months.
That's a scuffed setup right there.
There are enough people I know that have worked at PC Gamer while sat on a dining room chair. Like all day, 8 hours sat on a dining room chair, which is just backbreaking.
I'm getting us off topic here, but I also am reminded of the time that we wrote a story about when Concerned Ape finally got like a new PC and desk setup or something like that. The developer of Stardew Valley. It was like he was working on this most cursed, awful desk.
He had a scuffed setup. Yeah,
you can find that on our website somewhere. Google it, PC Gamer, Concerned Ape's new PC or something like that. You will find pictures of what he was working on, and I think maybe what he upgraded to as well. But yeah, very getting by with what you can scratch together.
Right, we have to move off the topic of bad chairs, or else somebody who does like a manual job will be shouting at us for, oh, you're complaining, you sit down doing that.
My poor tailbone.
Gotcha.
Yeah,
while you're gaming on TV, right?
Yeah.
Gotcha, cool. 2 mice? Right, cool.
We've talked about like absolute basic stuff. What does it cost to get in? You wanted to talk a little bit about future proofing, Jacob. What
yes.
Should you future proof your PC? Oh, it's okay. All right.
Well, no, I won't say it's a myth. It just sounded catchy, so I said it. It's sort of, I think there's, again, it's that thing of you could always go one step further, and the promise is always you're future proofing. The higher end you're getting, the longer it's going to last. And I do think probably for most people, the more money they spend on a PC, the less time they keep it, because they're the kind of people that are happy to spend lots of money on these things. One
better.
I think there's a certain degree of future proofing you can do at a lower level. If you have like a budget graphics card and you get the absolute budget, you get very limited kind of amount of VRAM. You might, if you have less than 8 gigabytes, for example, like there is going to be a cutoff point at some point in the probably near future. Cutoff point makes it sound very final, but there's going to be a time where some games just won't run very well at all. They might just get terrible frame rates. It might just be unplayable. They might run on very, very low settings, lower than you'd expect, just because of that one spec, regardless of kind of the rest of your PC. So I think there's a certain degree of, well, if you can kind of bump up to an 8 gigabyte, and a lot of people would now argue 8 gigabytes is the thing that's getting kind of cut off, so you now need 12 gigabytes, and then you're talking like a 4070 in NVIDIA terms or above. And I do think that will last longer than the 4060. Whether people keep these things around, though, is like a whole other issue. I think it's a behavior thing. I know a lot of people that will just stick with a PC for a very long period of time. Well, yeah. So there we go. How long have you stuck with this PC then?
Well, I say a long time. I've had my PC almost for 4 years now, and the only thing I've done is put more RAM in it, and that's the only thing. That's mainly because if I was to change much else, I've been advised that I would basically just have to buy an entire new PC because my motherboard and my CPU kind of sucks.
Yeah, that's the thing. There's a certain point where, so RAM's obviously an easy one you can upgrade, but then if you have a DDR4 system, and you were like, okay, I bumped up to DDR4, I've got 32 gigs now, I kind of double my memory. At this point, like, you're probably not going to be able to get much faster or much benefit from much faster stuff. If your CPU is what's holding your system back, you could plug a really fancy GPU into it, and the CPU might bottleneck it. And then if you need to change the motherboard, like you say, it's the CPU, the motherboard, plus the RAM, because the RAM you just bought and upgraded won't fit into the new ones because they're DDR5 now. So yeah, there's the cost to do an entire change could be massive. Yeah. And I realized it's sounding like from PC Gamer, we're going, oh, PC costs are just wild. There's no way you can justify this. But as you said earlier, I think it depends what you're doing with it as well, because you can get that gaming experience that's unrivaled by anything else. And you could do a lot more with it. You could work on it. You could, edit videos on it. You can edit photos on it. And you can kind of do everything with one device, providing you've kind of kitted it out the right way. And I think that's where that kind of value proposition comes in.
Go ahead, Mollie.
I was just going to ask if someone is, because this, it's like, how expensive is it to get into PC gaming? If we're talking individual parts, like I've said, my CPU is kind of holding me back, and it might just be like a whole switcheroo at that point. What would you say are the things that you shouldn't like cheap out on, I guess? The things that, I know you say future-proofing is a bit of like, it's a bit stupid, but like what would be the things that you would say you should definitely invest in over
the CPU is like the truth of future proofing, right? Kind of like you were saying, Jacob. I mean, that's the bottleneck that you're going to run into.
Yeah, I think you can get quite far on a fairly budget CPU though. I mean, one of my favorites for ages has been the kind of that 10400, 11400, 12400 Intel chip, which is one of their cheaper ones. And even when they weren't doing so good in the high end and AMD were doing a lot better, those chips have always been really good for the value for money. But I would say like the one thing where I absolutely always tell people never to skimp out on, it's the PSU. Because if your PSU if you get a bad one and it's from a manufacturer that nobody really knows, it's not really been tested that well, the soldering's bad, there's so many things that could go wrong with it. And if they go wrong, sometimes they just break everything they're connected to as well. And so I think that's, you really, really shouldn't skimp out on your power supply. And that, I know it's the most boring thing in your entire PC because it's just a box and it does nothing. But you never ever skimp out on your power supply.
Yeah, that's a fair tip. And it is also something that's not too bad to upgrade either. I've done that before. It's not like fun to reconnect everything to a fat power supply. That's not nearly as nice as just snapping in some new RAM. But as far as like, thinking about compatibility and what you have to deal with, upgrading a power supply is not too bad.
And you can usually get them for like a pretty good price as well. And that is the benefit of it. Now that cryptocurrency mining hasn't kind of stolen all the high power power supplies.
Thank goodness. With pre-builts, what do you find pre-built manufacturers usually skimp out on?
The power supply.
Power supply.
No, I wouldn't say they always skimp out on them so much, but they are often not like a brand you'd recognize. And I think that's the kind of worrying thing about that. That's not to say that they're necessarily going to conk out on you, but we just don't have the information on the brand. And so you just can't say whether they're from a trusted manufacturer. I mean, they all use OEMs. They're all using kind of very similar OEMs who build these power supplies for a lot of different companies. And we know which ones of those are good and which ones are, you can trust. And so when you just don't have that information, you just can't really say. But I think the other thing you sometimes see pre-built manufacturers doing, and this isn't an indictment of anyone in particular or all of them, but you often see like single channel memory as well, where they'll put like one 16 gigabyte stick in. Yeah.
Yep. I am a pre-built girly. And the reason why I swapped my RAM out after like 3 years was because I had single channel 16 gig. And every time I would mention it, the first response would be, Mollie, fucking fix that. Like, you could change that immediately.
Because you're hampering half the bandwidth, it's just for
it
no
made a
reason.
huge difference. Like, switching to dual channel did make like a massive difference. I did do dual channel 32 gigs, so like I also obviously went up in general. But oh my God, I can't believe I went 3 years doing that? Like, genuine insanity.
It's like the people that kind of still stick with a hard drive, for whatever reason, maybe good reason, but will have a hard drive for a while. The day that they swap to an SSD, I've had friends do it, and I've said, get a new SSD. They're really cheap now. And they're like, oh, okay, are they really that cheap? And they find out they can get 3 times what they had in a hard drive for cheaper. Not, you could get a cheaper hard drive now, but you can get a lot of solid state storage compared to 10 years ago for relatively low amount of money. And that difference of just, if you actually put it as your boot drive, is night and day. I mean, that alone is probably like the single most notable or noticeable upgrade you can make to a PC in terms of just everything just happening, flashing on screen super quick, it boots up super fast. And even though, we all like new graphics cards that run a game really fast, but if you're still running on a hard drive, like, get that thing out there.
So we've talked a lot about hardware stuff so far. We've talked about the price of getting into having a PC, but you're not doing any gaming yet with just this PC. And we know that game prices have gone up. They've gotten more expensive. Getting the latest, greatest, newest release of the year is going to set you back like $70 now. How many pounds is that? Too many?
It's £70 as well.
Yeah, some of them are 70, often £50 though. Yeah.
Yeah. Which is rough. So, I mean, as far as the software side of things, do we feel like getting a subscription service is the way to go? Like, if you were starting fresh, if you're like, I know not many people are doing that anymore.
I'm pulling a face.
I know you are. Yeah.
I'm also pulling a face.
Okay, so we're like, if you're just getting into the ground on PC gaming, don't do it. Don't go subscription service.
No.
Go sales.
For the listeners, obviously, I can't just see 2 shaking heads.
Two people shaking their head emphatically.
I'm not a Game Pass fan. I don't. Again, it's an uneducated take because I don't cover this stuff much. It's not PC hardware, but I just don't. I don't think it's a very good business model. You know how Stadia was like a terrible business model. I just think we're going that way with Games Pass because I don't. Netflix struggles to make TV shows. Music streaming struggles to kind of pay artists very well, and then Netflix struggles to make things that keep people subscribed. I don't really like where that goes when Microsoft decides at some point, oh, we need to make more money from games. And it will happen at some point because they pump a lot of money into it. And at some point they're going to go, actually, they'll get new leadership and they'll go, right, how do we make more money out of this? And I don't really like what Games Pass looks like when you get that. And also from a personal standpoint, the times I've had it where I was like, oh, I'll play Crusader Kings and I'll play loads of that on it. And then I want to go back and it's like, now I have to buy a subscription service to go back and play it when I should have just bought it just outright because I just end up playing the same game for 5 months and I could have just bought the game. And now I'd still own it now instead of having to go pay for the subscription service again.
Yeah, that's kind of, from like a consumer standpoint, it is just, at this point, it's just, I don't like it anymore. I don't want to be a Steam shield. We've spoken about launches in the past as well. And it's just ultimately, I really like having everything in one place. And I like owning the things that I have. I mean, digital ownership is like a whole other kettle of fish. But like, I like perceiving that I own something rather than like renting, I guess, is how I would view like a subscription at this point. It's like the Xbox app, it's kind of a pain to use. I don't love it. Yeah, and it's like when it's not all just housed in one location, I get really agitated.
and it runs different versions of games to the Steam version sometimes, which causes problems. And I just don't. That seems confusing and
there
unnecessary.
was a whole thing with Palworld, I believe, when Palworld first came out. The Game Pass version was different to the Steam version to the point that a bunch of my friends had gotten Game Pass to try the game out on Xbox, and they were like, they realized it was different and better on Steam, and then they all end up getting their Game Pass refunded because that was the only reason that they'd got it, was to try this thing. And
I will say, in defense of Game Pass, I have a friend that had a kid and they were saying for children it's amazing, right? Because you can just buy that and they kind of just get all these fresh new games. You're not spending tons of money and making your kid unhappy by saying no when you can't buy every new big game that came out. And I imagine back to when I was a kid, like if I could have had access to almost every big game on PC or an Xbox, that would have been amazing. That would have been like game changing, right? But yeah, so I can see totally the argument. but I'm with you where I kind of want to have a perceived ownership of this thing, even though I hate physical copies. So I'm really on the wrong side of a lot of these cases, but I hate physical copies. I want a digital version that I can feign to own.
Yeah, I'm surprised. Just because I am not much of a subscription person either. Like, I really don't like doing Molly, you know, there are certain MMOs I don't play because of subscriptions. Like, I just don't like having that in the back of my mind. But I have friends that have Game Pass that really enjoy like the convenience of it, who also own a lot of games on Steam and are just like, yeah, we have a Game Pass also. And something about that is easy. But yeah, when you get down to the brass tacks of it, like with the versions or, compatibility, like your friends who are playing on Steam, that kind of thing. Yeah, there's parts of it that maybe aren't as convenient as you initially believe it to be.
It's a degree of like subscription fatigue, I think, as well, which probably is like unfair to Game Pass, maybe, but I just don't. After a certain point, I just want to rid myself of so many subscriptions, and just because you also, I don't know if you find this, but I'll end up kind of playing a game for a little bit, and then maybe bouncing off it for a really long time, and during that gap, that kind of respite from playing something because I'm out and about, or during the summer when I've not been playing so much stuff, I'll generally find that like if I'm paying for a subscription, I'll have it in the back of my mind and I feel this like horrible guilt. I'm wasting money now because I'm not actually using it enough to justify it. And when you bought the game, you have that guilt initially, but it very quickly fades away and you forget that you ever paid money for it. And it just sits in your library and you go, oh, these are just games I have in my library. I didn't pay, a significant sum of money over a long span of time to buy up this entire library. So I think it just makes it a bit easier.
Yeah, and I don't know. I feel like when it comes to PC gaming specifically as well, obviously the entry point on the hardware side, it's expensive, right? It's a lot of money, but I feel like above anything, PC gaming on the software side is where you find the best deals, right? It's generally where I have bought games for the cheapest. Like PlayStation, when I was like a big PlayStation gamer, their sales were okay, but just for me, like nothing has compared to the stuff I found like in a Steam sale. And I think that is one of the benefits, even though it's very expensive to get in through the door. Like once you're in, if you take advantage of the sales and, not endorsing key reselling sites, but if that's what you end up wanting to do, like it can be decent as long as you're not wanting to play every big game like on release, right?
Yeah. I'd say because we talked about this recently, Molly, and I don't remember what episode or topic it was, but about like how many more sales Steam has than they used to. There's like the big seasonal sales. And like Epic also does these things. Steam does them. Epic does them. Like we know that EA does publisher sales quite often, and like specifically on sim stuff, like lots of publishers, Sega will do publisher sales. Capcom will do a publisher sale, all of this stuff. And you can find it like through multiple storefronts all the time. And it takes, if you were actually trying to like buy everything on sale all the time, it would take a little bit of like patience. That's what we were talking about, was patient gaming. Patience, and just like really paying attention to that stuff, like knowing what Steam sale is happening right now to get the things that you want. Probably good use of your wish list if you're like, these are things I want to buy when there's a price drop, but it can definitely be done. I don't know what number that means I have to add to my basic gaming total of 1930, but yeah.
I think it's difficult though with the social side of PC gaming, which is great. I mean, it's got amazing social channels. You could have Discord, you could chat on Steam, you could genuinely, make a lot of friends or play with a lot of friends, connect with people. That's something PC does really well. But, a large sum of the money I spend on games are on games that I buy because a friend's like, you have to play this with me. And then I'm like, oh yeah, sure. And then I buy it, we play it twice, and then they just go off it. And I'm like, I bought this because you wanted to play this game, and now we haven't done it. And then we go back to playing the game that cost like a tenner, which we've been playing for about 2 years. We bought Valheim, we just play Valheim for hundreds of hours. And then we buy a new game, and we're like, yeah, that's great. This costs £40. We're going to do this. And then, we just drop off it and go back to playing Valheim.
That's my friends with Diablo. I was like, don't get it launch week. Don't do it. We played like a week and a half of Diablo together, and every once in a while they're like, we should play more Diablo. I'm like, yeah, we totally should.
Yeah, I want to restart Elden Ring. We're not going to.
I did it with both of those things, Diablo and Elden Ring. Oh, it's just like, great, we're all played together. Played for a bit. Didn't do it.
trying to think of what other things we've missed as far as costs go. We've talked about hardware. We've talked about software.
We haven't talked about RGB lighting.
RGB lighting.
Which I did want to bring up.
An absolute necessity.
It is a necessity, or, you know, a lot of people would shun it, but I do think there is a huge amount of cost added to things in PC components and peripherals that is just to do with RGB lighting. Or
that you don't get to opt out of, because that's what the model is.
Yeah, exactly. And it's just there. And, you know, you can definitely you can buy loads of cases that don't have anything. You can block it all off. You don't have to look at it. It's great. You can have your shame PC. That's actually quite cool. I like non-RGB PCs a lot. But I think the other thing that you'll see a lot of now, and it's complete added tax, you don't need to buy it, nobody needs them, is screens. They'll put a screen on almost anything now. You know, a PC case with a screen, a cooler with a screen, you know, a motherboard with a screen.
Yeah, those are big right now for people with like aesthetic builds.
Yeah. And they do look amazing. You know, I've used quite a few of them. I reviewed quite a few of them. But the price we're talking now is like, you're talking about, again, PS5 cost for just the cooler to go in your PC because it has a screen on it now. And it's incredible. You know, I mean, it's, you know, obviously they can make these amazing screens. They can put them on pretty much anything. Sometimes they can bend them. They can, you know, you can make really cool effects with them as well. But just one of those costs where I think if you're in PC gaming, you look at these aesthetic builds and you think, wow, I'd want one of those one day. You know, you can often find yourself trying to justify, like, oh, maybe I should spend a little bit more on this thing with a screen, or this thing with RGB lighting, or these keycaps, as we mentioned before last time I was on this podcast a while back. You know, keycaps can be super expensive, and your whole keyboard then becomes something you're investing in, your PC you're investing in, and it's just a long-term investment over a long period of time.
It's like car enthusiasts, right? It's like people like deck the shit out of their cars, and then they go to those like car meets and they got the hydraulics, and like my reference for this is like Need for Speed in the 2000s. So this is probably like painfully out of date at this point. But, you know, I think it's the same kind of thing, right? When you're getting into like screens and RGB and like artisanal keycaps, it's like, it is like the hydraulics and like the weird decals or decals. I call them decals. The weird like decal. Thank you. Yeah. Someone called it a decal once, and that's wrong.
They should be locked up.
Pronunciation like lives in my head. It's like, it's all those little like, it's like the hobbyist, like the most pure extreme form of like an enthusiast.
It scratches the same itch, I think, because I totally get the car thing as well. Totally get the car thing.
Yeah.
That's the most recent thing I bought for my PC, Jacob, and I'm blaming you for it, is another keyboard. I
was just about to say
I bought a car for my PC.
I bought a car to match.
I bought a second keyboard, Molly. You know, I already have my pink one with the custom keycaps that I got.
Yes.
And then I got a second one to be like the one I switch out, because I want to be that girl who can swap out keyboards. And I'm waiting on the keycaps for it to put on it, and also different switches for this one, because I got it, and the switches I have, I feel kind of muddy. I have a lot more typos than I used to. I already have a lot of typos.
What are the switches on that one, sorry?
It's a Newfie keyboard, and it's the partnership switch they did with Cherry. They're like a variant on a Cherry Red switch, like a silent top clear Cherry thing is what it's called. Yeah.
There could be a Cherry Silent. Yeah, the MX. Yeah, the silvers maybe, or maybe they did a whole different one.
It's not the silvers, or at least not. I'm looking at switching to the Gateron.
You guys are just saying words at this point.
What about like Jupiter Reds?
Oh, I don't know.
They're the lubed ones they do. Anyway,
yeah.
we could.
What about the satin blue guys?
We should do a whole
where are my satin blue users
about keyboards? Yeah. Oh my gosh. Wait.
Yeah. So the secondary components, like you're saying, I mean, I've recently swapped to a mouse pad that is like a hard top mouse pad, and that seems like one of those kind of absolutely needless things you really shouldn't spend money on, but it's really good. So I would recommend to anyone.
It's a desk.
It's not a desk. It's a tiny desk.
It goes on top of your desk.
But it's different in a way. Yeah, I suppose I see what you mean. I do see what you mean. They've sold me on another desk.
Jacob, you bought a desk for your desk.
It is good though. No, it is really good. I'm not selling this very well, but any hard top. Don't listen to Mollie about this. Any hard top mouse pad is definitely the thing to get if you're looking for frivolous ways to burn money on your PC gaming setup, which is what this has turned into.
Yeah, but if you're not, if you're looking to get into PC gaming, if you're like, damn, these consoles are getting expensive, am I looking at a PC? What are we saying? We're talking like 12 to 1500, right?
After I added in like the extras, you're looking at like close to 2,000, I think. If you get like a mid-range PC and all the stuff to go with it.
You can go cheaper.
Yeah.
You know, if you're just trying to get involved and you just want a PC and you just want to play something, I mean, you could get a 4060 PC for like 800 in a sale. That's going to be perfectly fine for a lot of stuff. And then, you know, you can get a motherboard for $75. You can get, like say, a mouse and keyboard for absolutely nothing. You could borrow a mouse and keyboard from... You get like an old office mouse and keyboard.
Pre-builts come with awful mouse and keyboards, and you know, you don't want to keep them.
You can get an SSD for $30. You can get, you know, the cooler 20. You can get a lot of stuff to build a PC yourself if you wanted to, or expand the memory or expand the storage. You know, there are actually quite a lot of options for getting a really affordable and genuinely good PC for playing on. You know, it doesn't even have to be a 4060, which are actually 4060s are the most popular seen a pre-built, but if you're building your own, a 4060 generally is a little more expensive than the alternative kind of AMD option. You could get a 7600 XT, which is not a graphics card that we kind of loved when it came out, but it's about $230. You know, it's not a huge amount.
That's downright it's a lot cheap of money for a graphics card.
Yeah, in terms of graphics cards, it's cheap. It's still a lot of money, but you know, and it'll do just fine. And I think it's very easy with PC Game to go, oh yeah, but 4090's this and whatever. Yeah. But, you know, you could build a pretty decent PC for 800, 900 if you're savvy with it, if you shop around. And if you go into like a big sales event like Black Friday, which is, you can dislike for a whole bunch of reasons if you're kind of, you know, think it's just like a big rush to pick up loads of stuff and like race to the bottom. But for tech, it's fantastic time to buy a bunch of stuff and get into PC gaming.
The number you said reminds me of, that's pretty much what I spent, 800. And the year was 2013. The last time I remember like what I spent exactly on like just a pre-built. Like I got a new machine at that point, whole cloth, Black Friday, $800. I don't remember what was in it at that point, but like that was the entry point that I got for like a system that I think I ship of Theseus for a solid 10 years, really. Like,
that's the thing. Once you get in, you can change part by part, like piece by piece. Except for, you know, as we've mentioned earlier, the motherboard and CPU, and that might affect the memory you can get, and then you need a bigger PSU for the graphics card. There are some things that are going to affect others, but you can piece together a build over time, and it'd be pretty good in the long run. And the other thing I'd say is look at AMD parts, and people don't. I think on the CPU side, it's a lot more AMD friendly. People are fine with that. Ryzen is like a very popular choice for people building things. But on the graphics side, you know, NVIDIA rules the roost. Everyone just buys NVIDIA. People still cite AMD's bad drivers as a reason why they don't buy them. But generally, I use both quite frequently. They're both fine. It's the AMD cards, after they've been out for 6 months, always come down in price massively. And then you can pick one up for, you know, a fraction of what it should be selling for, while NVIDIA still hold their value, and get a lot better frame rates out of it. And you often get a lot more memory as well, which kind of hammers home that the future-proofing thing. You don't have to worry about that so much when you're buying an AMD card that already has 12 gigs of memory, or 16 sometimes, and is cheaper, and will give you high frame rates. And yeah, it doesn't have DLSS, but still got a bunch of other features that you might want to. That's not me like vouching for AMD in every single regard, but I will say that I think they do generally, on the budget side of things, tend to be the better option.
Yeah. Well, then we've got a few different avenues to get into PC gaming. We've got the Steam Deck, which we do consider like a genuinely decent way to get into PC gaming. And again, that's future-proof on the software side, because even if you don't end up attached to that device forever, you have your library that you've built up on that device that then goes directly to a PC and immediately benefits from whatever technology you've put into that. So you can get into a Steam Deck for like $550 for the OLED, the smaller edition. If you don't want the OLED, it's cheaper than that. It's like $400. If you're getting a budget PC, you can get into one of those for like $800 around Black Friday, as Jacob is detailing. And if you want a little bit more than that, if you're like entering at the already a hobbyist level, you might be looking around $2,000. But that's me overshooting on prices for the you know, being safe side of things.
And obviously Jacob and the rest of our very talented hardware team, who know far, far more than I do, have like so many guides on this stuff anyway. Like, we just yapping, but if you want to read like actual educated like educated, informed advice, like Jacob and the team have some fantastic stuff on the website.
Appreciate the shout out. Thank you.
Yeah, very true. Especially coming into the sale season year round. Obviously, we have buying guides on any kind of component that you want to get, or just on like a machine that you want to get. Those are at pcgamer.com. If you're Googling for the best GPU, what kind of GPU you want to get, or if you want the best wireless keyboard, that's all there. Along with everything else on the website, all our usual news, reviews, guides, opinions, all that great stuff. And as usual, you'll be able to talk with Mollie and I about this week's episode at forums.pcgamer.com. Thank you, Jacob, for bringing along your expertise on this one.
Thank you, Jacob.
Thank you very much for having me.
Bye, guys.
Bye.
See ya.